It seems so obvious, right, in this story. When someone does something nice for you, you say, thank you. It's one of the first social graces that we learn, to reply with a polite thank you. I can't even begin to count how many times I've had to nudge my own children and be like, say thank you, when someone does something nice, right? Parents? When they receive an ice cream cone, or really anything at all. But the fact is that for us humans, saying thanks is not something that we come by naturally. It's not something that we come out of the womb doing. We have to be taught to say thank you. And reading this story about these people, these lepers who experienced healing, it's easy to hear a warning tone in Jesus' voice that's not unlike a hearkening back to childhood when we were chided and nagged and shamed into learning our beginning thank yous, just like we teach our children to say thank you. For most of us, learning that thank you, it led to a deeper understanding about why we thank people, right? How wonderful and how deep the roots of true gratitude can run in our hearts and in our souls. After all, we've all read the studies, right, and heard the adages and about how good gratitude is for our emotional health. Yeah? Right? They're not wrong about that. I think I have at least 4 gratitude journals that I bought on impulse that have like 2 or 3 sentences on the first page somewhere in my house. That's as far as I got, though. Because even knowing how good gratitude is for my soul, it's not easy. It's not easy for me to remember to be grateful, ever. But what do we really know about these lepers who didn't return to thank Jesus? We can assume that they were ungrateful, right? I mean, who knows? We could assume that maybe they were self-involved or just rude. They didn't have good manners. Perhaps. It's fairly easy for us to sit here in our cozy community with our societal gratitude norms of what's expected and see it that way. We're forgetting, though, that these folks were absolutely isolated, shunned, untouchable, literally untouchable. They had to yell out, unclean, if anyone approached them, so that healthy people could avoid infection. Maybe we should have done that during COVID, right? I'm positive! Stay back! Masks were better. I know, but the idea that we could sit here now and try and know what these folks were going through when Jesus healed them is pretty preposterous on our behalf. In fact, it reminds me of that Herman Melville quote, of all the preposterous assumptions of humanity over humanity, nothing exceeds most of the criticisms made on the habits of the poor by the well-housed, the well-warmed, and the well-fed. Have you heard that one before? Nothing exceeds the criticisms on the habits of the poor made by the well-housed, the well-warmed, and well-fed. So, instead of spending our time making assumptions about the 9 lepers in this story, let's look instead about what we do know about this story. Go back to the text. I want you to actually pull out your bulletin. Get it back out. You got it? Good. I see you, Stephanie. I see you. Verse 11, let's start right at the very top. Verse 11 says, on the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. Between. The region between is a liminal space, right? It's neither one nor the other. It's neither here nor there. It's kind of like a no man's land. It reminds me of, I was in East Germany in the 90s, right after the wall came down, and there were these weird spaces where nobody lived right on the borders. And it's that kind of in-between space, like where are you actually? Liminal spaces are also sometimes called margins. Yeah? And it's where we get the words marginalized. So it would be the places where the people who were already ostracized would gather, where they would be. But liminal places too in our lives are those places where Jesus can actually find us. When we're not so sure of ourselves, when we're not so readily placed within our borders, that there's room for Christ to come and meet us where we are. A liminal place, in between, is where they were. If you skip ahead to verse 14, it says this: when Jesus saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. The phrase "as they went" is significant. It wasn't right away. It wasn't like Jesus got out his magic pixie dust and sprinkled it on them and their leprosy just fell away and they were clean right away. They had to go. Do you think that they left Jesus and were like, what the heck? Why would we show ourselves to the priests again? Why would we receive shame again? Why would we even go? They already know that we're lepers. They already know. They already know we're a mess. The other end of that is, do you think that the priests were nearby? It just says that they were in the in-between place, right? And I would bet that the priest was downtown someplace at some temple. Yeah? And so probably they had to go a ways to get there. They might have had to make a trek. And then, perhaps as they were already out of Jesus' presence, then they were made clean. As they were on their way, as they went, I bet they were dumbfounded by it. And here's where the things that we don't know double up, right? What do we know? What don't we know? So let's stick to what we do know, yeah? The one leper who came back, he's our role model, right? We all want to be the one leper that remembered gratitude, that remembered to come and show thanks, that thought that it was worth the time. I would love to be that one leper in my daily life. Finally getting gratitude right. I mean, I would love to be the Samaritan. Or wait, would I? The Samaritan was a double outcast, a leprous Samaritan. That sounds like a blast. Not only are you an outcast because of your religion, but also because you're ill. You get the double whammy. But Jesus says to him, "Your faith has made you well." Your faith. The Samaritan's faith was not viewed as legitimate. It wasn't an actual faith. It wasn't real religion. It wasn't right. It didn't sit well with all the Israelites. And the Samaritan faith was good enough for Jesus. Interesting, right? It's amazing. Last week, do you remember? We had mustard seeds, and those were big enough. And now here this week, we have the wrong religion altogether, saying the wrong prayers, going to the wrong temples, and it's enough for Jesus. I'm getting the picture here that Jesus isn't picky. It's starting to look really good for all of us, I think, really, in the gospel here. Our faith, our small, weird, unorthodox, incomplete faith from the wrong side of the tracks probably is enough. Our gratitude is enough. You are enough. I mean, what makes a leper, really? Being outcast, being shamed, being alone. We've all been there. When I was in middle school, we used to call the lunch table, I sat at the leper table anyway, because it was all the nerds. It was like music nerds, and I had these ginormous glasses and bad hair. Oh my gosh, you guys. You thought 20 years ago my hair looked weird. You should see it like 35 years ago, even better. But it was the table of outcasts, right? Nobody would talk to us, except for each other. Middle school is rough. And is that a bad joke? Probably, but that's how it felt. And I imagine that all of us at one time or another have felt like we were the ones who were shunned. We were the ones who were outcast. We were the ones who were untouchable for some reason. We all carry those things. And we all fear that fate. I'm pretty sure that I'm not really the Samaritan in this story. Maybe I really am one of the 9 who, finding myself healed, I couldn't wait. Maybe I couldn't even stand to take the time to go back and thank Jesus. The need to see my family, who I'd been separated from, was too strong or too deep, and that's what I needed to do first. I mean, Jesus was great, but I need to do this other thing first. Or maybe the fear of not showing my healed body to the priests and lifting finally the stigma of being ostracized kept me on course to that temple, regardless of any gratitude I felt in my heart. Of course I was thankful, but I was also too overwhelmed, or too rushed, or too pressed to take the time. And that humanness, that misstep, that missed thanks, while maybe not my best trait, it's part of who I am. It's part of who we are. It's part of why Jesus loves us. Because we need him, and he sees us fully for who we are. Back in verse 14, it says that Jesus saw the lepers. Just says it kind of nonchalantly. But I think that being seen by Jesus is a whole nother thing altogether. I imagine that they were not looked at on a surface level, like, oh, there's the lepers, there they are. But fully seen as people, as folks living with a deep trauma. Humans who needed care, who needed healing, who needed grace. And you know what else is true in this story? Jesus knows why they didn't come back, and he knew that they wouldn't come back, and yet he healed them anyway. They were still worthy of his grace. We should absolutely practice gratitude in our lives. We have much to be thankful for. But know that when we lose ourselves in a moment, or if we're overwhelmed, or if life takes us away, Jesus is more than just a stern judge who's going to hold us to a line where we must meet an expectation. Jesus is more like a loving parent, a healing coach, holding up an unexpected but worthy example of this is what faithfulness looks like for us. Seeing us for who we are and who we could be, and then encouraging us in our gratitude, in our healing. I pray that we can learn to see one another the way that Jesus saw the lepers, the way that Jesus sees us now, and that we can learn to express our thanks fully, living in gratitude to God for every breath we've been given. Thanks indeed be to God. Amen.